I just did a review on Gladiator together with the fall of the Roman Empire. The fall of the Roman. Yeah. And here we are again, or some more. Gladiator. I went to see Gladiator II, but you can't escape Gladiator 1. You can't. The very, 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 very first thing you need to know is for Gladiator 2 is do not watch the trailer. It spoils the story. I have no idea why this trailer exists. I saw the trailer. I'm really, really miffed because I knew the story before. I mean, it's like going to a whodunit and already knowing who did it. You know, it's not fun. So don't watch the trailer. It is worth seeing Gladiator again if you haven't seen it in a very long time. It's not necessary, but I would have expected them to hearken a little bit closer onto the first one in the way that they want part of the plot. So you should repeat it a little bit more. But this is a complaint I have with Ridley Scott, is that he doesn't do some of these trappings that I think a film needs, like introduction of characters, introduction of places, like harking on stuff that people may vaguely know but have forgotten and should be repeated. It was worse on the Napoleon film, but that was a complaint. I was with the second person in the movie, and I usually sit down with the second person and talk about some of the backgrounds, because that person had not seen Gladiator I, so I knew they didn't know. And I usually then talk about what my predictions are going to be for this movie, and what I already knew from the from the trailer, which was the entire plot. But even so, my second person still needed all my explanations beforehand, because it was not in the movie. And I'm going, okay, dude. He does introduce the main character pretty quickly by name. He has a tendency of showing a character, showing a scene, and then much later, or if you're lucky, the next scene, the name of this character is mentioned. And if you're unlucky, it takes 20 minutes before you find out who this person is who you've been looking at for 20 minutes. And going, that's annoying. And so the main character is introduced in the second scene he is in. His name is mentioned. Oh, joy. But then they're pretty soon into a battle, which is another one of those staple things that Ridley Scott does. He doesn't. He may do an opening scene, he may not, and then he does an action scene, big action, spectacular naval battle in this case. The battle is wonderful. I have no complaints about any of the action, of the looks. Everything looks spiff. All the acting is wonderful. Everything's wonderful. So any gripes I have is going to be these film intricacies and storytelling intricacies. And so in this first scene, you get the battle scene of our main character, who is in an unnamed place, which we sort of deduced but probably was Carthage. It was in the Mediterranean on the south. They mentioned it's North Africa. It can't be anything other than Carthage. Which is weird if you know history, because this is set in about 210-ish? 211. I know it's 211, we'll come to that in a second, but that's when it is. And in 211, Carthage has been part of the Roman Empire for 300 years odd? So where is this battle happening? This is not a battle... No? I don't understand. So we're already looking at where is this? It cannot be anything other than Carthage. It's not obviously not Egypt, because Egypt looks like Egypt and it looks very nondescript. So there's nothing else. So unnamed city in North Africa with a named hero. His name is Hanno. Not a known name at all. So, but that's our hero. He has a lady. Her name is Arishat. Is her name? Don't get attached, because women are not doing well in this entire franchise. Hanno and Arishat are actually helping to defend the city. She takes part in the battle as an archer. Doesn't work out for, they were married, or as good as married. And the battle is they're being attacked by the Romans by way of this unnamed character, a general, obviously, very well played by Pedro Mescal, plays him. He makes a very handsome general, but unnamed until later that you find out this guy's called Acacius. You have the same kind of opening scene in Gladiator. There's more politics because the emperor is there. I actually expected this unnamed general to be possibly Emperor Septimius Severus, except that the opening credits had already said it was going to be in the time of Caracalla and Geta, who are his children, and they came into power when Septimius Severus was already dead. So I sort of thought, that could have been... No, but an unnamed person turns out to be somebody who's not historical, basically. I will come back to him in a second. The Gladiator original starts with a guy who has a lady and a child who runs afoul of the Romans. He was Roman and runs afoul of them. He ends up on the path of being a slave and a gladiator, and his wife and his child are killed. This story is a story of a young man who has a lady. There's no child, thank you. But they run afoul of the Romans, and she ends up dead, and he ends up as on the path of being a slave and a gladiator. I do understand they're trying to get the same glory again, I suppose. And it's not a bad attempt, but the whole thing reads as a fanfic. They're trying to... Because a fanfic very often takes some more of the original just because we want to have some more. And also picks and chooses the best parts of this original and discards whatever you don't find that very interesting because it's a fanfic. You can allow to do that. And here they kind of do the same. They pick and choose the parts of the story they liked, and they dumped out some of the stuff they didn't. One of the things they picked and chose and liked was Lucilla, the daughter of Marcus Aurelius, who is in the original. So it is set, the Gladiator II is set a full generation after number one, so you get the people who were still alive, the characters who were still alive at the end of the first one can come back, and they have the same actors coming back, which is absolutely awesome. So the lady who played Lucilla in the original, who was adult lady but not older in any way, is now 24 years older, and she's still here, and she still rocks the boat. That's absolutely wonderful. And then Senator Gracchus, who was played by Jacobi in 2000, he wasn't very young then, he's very much not young now. I think, as far as I know, he's already pretty much retired from major theater acting, so he came back for this one. That's wonderful. I love it. That said, in the case of Derek Jacobi, I have to say he didn't get enough screen time. He should have given a little more. There was a lot of stuff going on. They also, there's somebody on the staff who knows a lot about like he knows a lot of little tidbits about Roman history, and they put that all in. So this general, this unnamed general, who turned out to be Acacius. The name Acacius, because I looked it up, it's on my other list, is actually from a general in the Byzantine Empire, a good 250 years later, 300 years later. So that's where the name is from. But the plot that goes with this guy, in which a very capable general is, the emperor becomes jealous, and stuff happens, and he contrives to get the guy murdered, and by that basically murdering one of the few people who actually know anything in the empire. That is actually a historical thing that happened to one of the much later emperors in 454. Aetius was assassinated by Emperor Valentinian III, and he was called he was often called the last of the Romans. So he was obvious. This is the same guy. I think Attalus, maybe they didn't like the name and they changed it to Acacius. God, they're both pretty terrible names. I'm sorry. Roman names, hey, I mean, Lucilla, I like the character, but the name Lucilla, especially the first few times I was hearing Drusilla. Lucilla. Romans. And then we have the Denzel Washington character. There is one, because you should always give Jacobi a job, and you should always give Denzel Washington a job. I mean, absolutely. And he plays Macrinus. And in this story, this guy is the former gladiatorial slave, now turned slave owner, and turns out pretty big mover and shaker in politics. And the interesting thing about the name is that Macrinus is actually the name of a later emperor. A little bit after this, not much, right after this actually. I can't spoiler history. History is history. This is the time of just after Septimius Severus, on which Caracalla and Geta, his sons, are taken over the throne. And I know it's the year 211 because that was only 1 year that Geta and Caracalla were on the throne together, because pretty soon, I mean literally within the year, Caracalla had killed Geta and he was doing stuff on his own. Now, the movie, and that's all these movies that includes Gladiator and almost all the movies about historical events, always compress the time together, because the movie makes it seem like just after Caracalla murders Geta, then Caracalla gets murdered, which is not a spoiler for history. Caracalla gets murdered, but it takes a few years. I mean, he's another 5 years in power, or more than 5 years in power. So, yeah, here, historically, Caracalla is murdered by a henchman of Macrinus, while taking a piss on a country road. Don't worry, he deserved it. He absolutely deserved it. Here, Macrinus does it himself by way of Denzel. So they sort of do the bare bones of history in this thing, but also not. And the not part is maybe more annoying because... And some of it I don't understand, because they have these Caracalla and Geta, and I'll show you pictures and you can see exactly what I mean. This is a look. I'm sure they were going for that look. But the thing is, the real Caracalla and Geta, who was the younger brother, by a year, not much. For some reason, this movie seems to think they were twins of some sort. They were not. There was a year. not more than a year, but a year between them. And then Geta was pretty popular with the Romans because he was the one who was interested in literature and stuff like that. Caracalla was a soldier, big bully kind of type. And it's going, why make him an effeminate thing with makeup? And he's the one, in this version, he's the one who does all the tantrums and stuff like that. And I don't think history knows very much about Geta other than that he was popular with Rome. So we don't know anything about it. We do know that Caracalla was as mad as a hatter, but he was burly, big, and knock people on the head kind of mad, not throw tantrum kind of mad, you know? And if you're going to do a Gladiator movie in the style of the original one, which ends with the fight between Maximus and Commodus, big fight, wouldn't you go for a big fight between burly Caracalla and a sturdy Hanno? I don't understand. So they don't do any of that. And I'm going, huh? I don't... There's more stuff I don't understand. Because, so you have one lady, and Lucilla. Lucilla doesn't belong in the story at all. I love the actress. I love her presence. She doesn't belong here, historically, because the person died under Commodus. She tried to get her brother assassinated. It failed. He found out, and he executed her. She left behind 4 kids. Important for the people who've seen Gladiator I, so that's the little boy is the culmination of those 4 kids. And of course, in Gladiator II, a good generation later, little kid would be grown up at this point. But she doesn't belong in the story at all. But there are women who belong in the story. The most prominent lady of the time was a lady called Julia Domna, the mother of Caracalla and Geta and the wife of Septimius Severus. She was a mover and a shaker, and she's missing. I mean, she could have been a battle axe, and she could have done a lot of fun stuff with this lady, and she's missing. And there are too few women in this entire franchise, because in the other one there's only the one woman, and here it's the same one woman. And all the ladies that these lead men are engaged with, like their wives, are dead in no time flat. What? One more bit of name dropping by the film is Senator Thrax, which is a very strange name for a Roman senator, and that's because that is not a name for a Roman senator. That is the name of a later emperor, Maximus the First, also known as Thrax, because he was Thracian. And I'm pretty sure that the people who wrote this thing knew, because this Thracian was historically known as a really, really big, tall guy, and they have a big, tall guy playing this guy. He's not in any way a Thracian, he's just a senator, and they're just doing politics. He's basically a colleague of the Derek Jacobi character of the Gracchus, sort of in the same thing. For the people who like that sort of thing, he is one of the people who was in Blackadder. He's the really tall one from Blackadder. So, very nice to see him. Also, always give him a job too, please. But it shows to me that these people, they know their history, but they're fanficking the history. This is not history. They want a good name, so they go to Acacius from the Byzantine era, but they want the story of Attalus, so they take his story. And they need a nice lady, so they have a nice actress who played it last time can come back. And is the character dead in real life? We don't care. It's fanfic. And I'm not sure if that is fine. It is fine as long as people know it's fanfic and don't take it as real. But then you have the other side of it, and I mean, this is a compliment to the movie, is that if you want an idea of what Roman life might have been like the feasts, and there's a wonderful moment where earlier on Hanno is in an arena fighting a rhinoceros. Romans are always very OTT, and the film doesn't show it very clearly, but this rhinoceros does not survive the incident. They do much of that off screen because rhinoceros is CGI anyway, so that's fine. But then later there's a banquet, and he is Hanno is there as entertainment, because of course he is, and served on the table, and they don't make a feature of this. Served on the table, there is a rhinoceros head. They're eating the rhinoceros that was in the games, and I thought that was a really good illustration of what Roman life, I think, what it could have been like for people who had lots of money. Let me put it like that. So as an impressionable piece, I like both these movies. This goes for both these movies. It gives you a flavor of the day, maybe, but then when you get the actual history, not so much. And the main story is Hanno is made into a gladiator, or you're a slave. As a gladiator, you're a slave. That's maybe a critique on the movies, is that they don't really emphasize that. Yes, it was a slave that had some privileges and possibly a way out, because you could buy yourself out. They do make a point of that. But the slaveness of it, if you want to know more about the slaveness, I think probably Spartacus is there is a lot more about them being a slave in Spartacus than it is in this thing. It sort of happens and he copes with it, and I think making Denzel Washington the ex-slave gladiator, now gladiator owner, and then later I will get into that, was a very interesting choice. Macrinus is historically a Berber, and well, Berber is absolutely not as black as Denzel, but this is a fanfic, so they realized that he's not European white, so they made him something else. I don't know. Hanno becomes a slave. They don't make a point of it. And if you had seen, I'm going to go into the spoiler space here. Spoiler. I don't know if you have to have a spoiler up for something that was in the trailer and should not have been. But I think, okay. So the peanut gallery just says no spoiler. Okay, spoiler gone. Hanno does know, but nobody else does. Sort of, he was young when it happened, but he does know or realize. He knows he's not African. He was adopted by a local tribe there in North Africa, who was black, by the way, which was good. But he knows he's, of course, not black, because he can tell by the skin color. And I think he suspects that he is Roman. And of course we figure out pretty quickly he is that son of Lucilla, who is called Lucius, because of course he is. So, and literally on IMDb, his role, Paul Mescal, who plays Hanno, is not listed as Hanno, he's listed as Lucius. So the spoilerage is absolutely everywhere. That's the big reveal of this movie, is that he is the son. And another big reveal, which I was going, is that he's also the son of Maximus from Gladiator I. And literally, that's not possible.
I thought he was dead. The kid.
No,
The kid was dead.
No, the kid was not dead.
Oh, okay.
They make the Gladiator I ends up with Maximus dead in the middle of the arena. Gracchus, Senator Gracchus, Derek Jacobi, is tasked to reinstate the Republic, which she will take up, and then Lucilla is standing there with Lucius, with the boy, and basically that's the end credits. In this movie, it shows that Lucilla, who's not stupid, grabbed Lucius by the hand and took him away, took him to safety, and then said, "Come, I'll send for you when it's safe." And then in secondary, she says, "It's not going to be safe. Go," and she sends him away to the far away being North Africa, and that's where he gets lost and found by the tribe. He's 12 at this point, which is old enough to remember quite a bit. And I think anything that he's forgotten is because he wanted to forget more than actually forgetting, if you know what I mean. I think it's a very thin story. But also, like I said, he's supposed to be child of Maximus. Maximus was married 12 years before Gladiator started, when the child should have been conceived. He was married. He had his own kid, or pretty soon after he had his own kid. So either he went to bed with her before he happily married somebody else.
It's not that much of a stretch that he would have had sex with other people.
Yeah, but the thing is, she is the daughter of the emperor, and she was married. So no. So that's fanfic garbage. Sorry, but I mean, and it also doesn't buy Hanno/Lucius anything, because he met Maximus once. They had one conversation. It's not helpful. Ditto and I agree with him, because he sort of throws it back to her, that it's nice that you now come and tell me you're my mother, and now you know that you're my mother, but I'm a grown ass guy. What's the point? He doesn't say it because he's a nice guy, but that's his posture says that, and it's fair enough. Yeah, I think I'm gonna skip to the absolute spoilers end. I warned my second person who was with me that this is the kind of movie that's gonna end up with the hero dead, because it did with the last time. So I was gonna warn him beforehand. This is gonna may end up with the hero dead. I was wrong. Everybody else ends up dead, and the hero ends up all alone. So there is your spoilerage, and he ends up as named Prince of Rome. Prince of Rome. I'm not kidding. And everybody knows he's Prince of Rome, and he wants to, they do a couple of really good speeches, or good enough speeches, and he does one at the end with the Praetorian Guard, an enormous amount of Praetorian Guard on the one side, and an enormous amount of army on the other side, nicely color-coded in red for the army and black for the Praetorians. I like color coding. And he holds a speech about, because the Macrinus is now, the Caracalla is dead, Geta is dead, Macrinus is now also dead because Hanno just dispatched him, and he sort of goes, we should not fight each other, kind of. And Romans didn't really like to fight each other. They'd like to fight other people, not each other. Each other is not fun. And he says. He sort of says we're going to reestablish the Republic, and there's no way. There's just no way. And I was thinking about it and going, he cannot restart the Republic for two reasons. One, if Rome cannot function as a republic, that's why they stopped being a republic, because they were having civil war after civil war after civil war after civil war, to the point that every Roman hated fighting other Romans. And so this was not a thing. And every Roman knew it. There's absolutely nobody at that time who talking about this sort of thing. And the other reason is that if they would start a republic, somebody would do a grab, and the first thing they would do was kill the only person who would stand in the way, which would be the Prince of Bloody Rome, Hanno. So he would be dead. The only thing he can do at this point, at the end of this movie, is pick up the imperial ship himself, become a good emperor. That's the best he can do. And as the grandson of Marcus Aurelius, he should. Unfortunately, that didn't happen in history. I have my little list of history over here. After Caracalla murdered Geta, and then was in power for another 6 years, Macrinus had Caracalla killed, and he was killed with his son of 9 years, unfortunately, a year or so later. Yeah. Then the Severan dynasty, of which Caracalla and Geta were a member, were reestablished by the self-same Julia, the sister of the self-same Julia Domner. She had a sister who had had a child, and they pushed that child forward. Stuff didn't get better. You get lots of young people on the throne, and it was a big mess. Caracalla and Geta, just as much. They were just very young people, and there was something wrong with Caracalla. Maybe some sort of sociopathy or psychopathy or something like that, in which for an emperor he could go bananas, and he did. He mostly went bananas outside of Rome itself in real life, and left Rome for Julia Domner to administer, and she actually reputedly did a pretty good job. So for Rome, Caracalla wasn't bad. For the rest of the world, it was, but you know. I would have liked to see better movies in this of this history, because this is very interesting history, and you go read this history about these people for realsies, and you get lots of interesting people and lots of interesting stories. You don't have to make up a Hanno or something like that. I have a few things on my list that are nice to say. Oh, first a bad thing. What the F? Are those monkey things? Are they the monkeys that mated with wolves and capybaras or something? They're CGI, so it doesn't really matter. But oh my god! Oh yeah, that's this. The second movie is 10% more violent and gory than the first one. Be aware of that, because they have more CGI and they have more blood and guts flying, a little bit more. I don't think it is excessive for the franchise. I just think the franchise is excessive, but that's neither here nor there. Good things that I did notice in the first one as well is religion. These Romans had like a pantheon religion. They don't make a lot of show about it, but the gladiatorial games, this is called Gladiator. Gladiatorial games were actually a religious feasts to commemorate a victory. It was usually to commemorate something and to thank the gods for something, not to get. It's not for like good harvest and stuff like that. It's not the kind of thing that I see. But if there is a big victory, you reenact the victory in the gladiatorial games, and it was very expensive and it was very spectacular, but it was religious. And I did see it in the first one as well. When you watch Gladiator, the gladiatorial game starts with this guy who puts on funny makeup and a ridiculous wig and starts talking. It's David Hemmings, for the people who know who it is, who unfortunately couldn't be in this new one because he died pretty soon after. He is the force speaker, and this is a religious speaker in a way that we almost don't recognize him because he's so ridiculous. And in this version, they have another one. It's Matt Lucas. Oddly enough, on IMDb, it's not listed what he is, but he is a religious speaker for the games, to loudly say what god is being honored in what way and what event. And I thought that was a really good touch. In the first one, they also have a moment where Maximus is holding little figurines of a little boy and a lady, which obviously represents his wife and his child. But these figurines usually, you find them in when you go to musea, you will find these. These were little house gods and goddesses that you put on a little altar, so you could pray to them for the whatever god you had. The Romans were not very particular about having their own gods to be the only gods. If you're from a faraway place and you had another god, you could put it in the altar. You had to do the Roman gods, but their gods.
They had polytheism, and they had house gods to each family.
Yes, so on your altar there would be a main god, and there would be a house god, and there might be some extra gods. So there's a whole bunch of gods on your altar that you could. And a little figurines you can go into your pockets. So that movie, the first movie, intimates that they are the child and the wife, but I think it's just a goddess and a child god. So, but the detail is pretty good. So historically, Caracalla sucked, and Geta maybe, We need a good film about these people. Ditto for Commodus, because that for Commodus, Gladiator I is not Commodus friendly. It shouldn't be Commodus friendly anyway, but true to reality. And for Commodus, I know that the Gladiator I could not do what Commodus did because it was worse. It was way worse than you can show on a film now in 2000 or in 2024, and it not have to be severely R-rated. Caracalla could have been... No, Caracalla was wrong. I'm sorry. I'm not happy about this. I mean, the actors, everybody does a wonderful job. What is written and what they put out. Caracalla and Geta both included. I still don't know why Geta is the tall one and Caracalla is the short one. Bunch of things. And also introduction of characters, please. Just, if there's nothing else, just put here. Lucilla, daughter of Marcus Aurelius. I would be so happy. Please. Anyway, don't watch the trailer. Do watch the show. Enjoy it. It's a big spectacle. You'll have fun. And that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.